Did you like it? So it's been 11 nights playing.
Welcome, dear readers, to Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Khaki.
Hi, and I am Kay.
And remember, we only judge books by their covers. I almost got it right. We find ourselves here today in your library. You've invited us into your vast collection of books and
10 meters of shelves and like 8 high.
Yeah,
all completely covered with my collection of mostly fiction, fantasy, science fiction. There's a few bookworms here.
Should we be worried about worm sign?
Well, only the 45 caliber ones.
Hey,
they go really fast. Occasionally you hear a crack and you'll think it's a gunshot, but no, it's actually one of those worms that is accelerating themselves through a whole stack of books, and it's terrible.
Awesome. I hope that the readers at home feel as comfortable and safe as I do now as well.
Right. So today's book is called Aliens from Space, written by David Osborne.
I was immediately captivated by this title.
Yes. Now don't confuse him with the book by the same title, Aliens from Space, by Donald E. Kehoe, who's from the National Investigations Committee for Aerial Phenomena. It's got a lovely cover. I'm not sure who did the cover art, but it's quite indicative.
It's probably Wutherington Lancelot again.
Really? You have a better eye for that than I do.
You'd be surprised how many of all the book covers he did.
Okay.
And by the way, our readers at home, if you'd like to look along on your podcasting device, you should hopefully be seeing the cover now. And if not, you can look in the show notes where I've put a link and an image.
The title is a bit of a giveaway. There's very little mystery when it comes to what this book is about. It's very much a product of its time. There was a lot of optimism about spaceflight, how it was developing. At the time that this book was written, which was around the time of the lunar landings, the first manned mechanized flight was just as far in the past as the lunar landings are for us now. Everything was going so fast, and everything was like, we can do this. There was a can-do thing, and unfortunately rocket equations caught up with them. And
the tyranny of rocket equations.
Absolutely, yes. Such a shame that things didn't keep progressing at that same pace.
Yes, and that democracy of rocket equation never took hold.
No,
that was
beaten down brutally.
Some would say justly.
Well, yeah.
Some would say that it had it coming, that it was never going to be a stable rocket equation.
Right, but, Sir Isaac Newton is not a kind man when it comes to those kinds of things.
He does not brook dissent, which is the foundation of democracy.
A little bit like Edison in that regard. So, this book, it starts off describing the time.
It's contemporary for the time that it was written, which was
It's near future for the time that it was written.
Of course.
So, it's like I think there's a moon base. They thought that the Apollo missions were only going to be the first step. They put the base in, and then, funding dried up when it turned out that lunar regolith is not particularly kind to
skin,
really. Yeah,
water. Let's name some other things that don't do well on the moon. Dogs,
yes,
potatoes, cheese. So, looking at this cover, we have a tweedy-looking gentleman with brill-creamed hair who seems to be explaining something to, I want to say, kind of a blue sloth man.
Of course, there's the five-fingered aliens.
Well, five-fingered, yes, and
a thumb.
And a thumb. So these are the three toga-clad Greco-Roman surfer dudes. They seem to be highly elongated.
I think it's mostly the creativity of the artist who's...
See, to me, it actually kind of seems like he was probably given the wrong measurements for the artwork and had to elastically stretch it out. Photoshop was, after all, an Apollo 2 invention in order to be able to simulate the moon photos better than the actual results that came back from the moon, which were abysmal.
It's a good thing that Young was actually a very good artist in the regard that he could direct that and make sure that everything looked good after it was retouched.
Is that because he crushed up and snorted all of those moon rocks, though? Don't tell me that was never proven.
There are rumors that
you've seen the press conference. You've seen him.
Yes, there is the evidence of
grunting like a caveman.
His credit card, which shows microscopic indentations which are very consistent with Regolith.
Yes. And the fact that his eyes turned purple and never changed back.
Yes, well, that could be Frank Herbert syndrome. But
rest his soul.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm inventing a new headcanon where in this world, unlike ours, Frank Herbert is dead.
He's dead.
But there's still Dune books coming out.
It's his son writing them.
Oh, that's right. right. No wonder he's also called Herbert.
Yeah, funny that.
Well, are there still Aliens from Spaces books coming out?
Well, not since the one from the guy from the NICAP.
Which is the non-invasive
cultural appropriation panel.
Wow, now that's a paradox right there. Very good, very good. Top marks, 10 points for... Would you be Gryffindor? Would you really be Gryffindor?
No, I'd be Hufflepuff.
You'd have that in common with this gentleman here with the Brill Cream, by the way.
Absolutely.
Definitely a Hufflepuff, definitely...
Now, Brill Cream is not my thing, because I like to take my showers in the morning, and if I were Brill Cream, then I'd have to change my pillowcase every night, which is a shame, because it does lovely things for your hair.
Is that perhaps why this gentleman wanted to go into space? The absence of gravity meant that he would be able to sleep with his hair perfectly coiffed and greased.
I mean, personally, for space, I would go with a buzz cut.
So these Greco-Romans dudes up here, who certainly seem to have buzz cuts, they must be far more advanced than the human space program.
Well, they're obviously, they've been traveling a long time to get to Earth. Also, the guy on the right doesn't seem to have an elbow.
They all seem to, they all just have wobbly... Well, that is a consequence of prolonged exposure to zero-gravity environments.
T-boning, yes.
T-boning?
T-boning.
Let's go with T-boning.
What's T-boning? You know how your bones kind of migrate out of the skin when you're in space?
Out of the skin?
Yeah, they kind of wander out.
Your bones wander out?
Yeah, you can kind of push them back.
Good Lord, I'm never going to space.
That's a given, since the thing.
Don't limit me. Okay, well, maybe I will go to space. Maybe I will start T-boning myself, even more than I currently do. I'm particularly interested in the titular aliens, because these Greco-Romans dudes, I think we're supposed to believe that they're future humans, because they've, as you mentioned, they've figured out the buzz cut technology, and they've elongated and grown thin with exposure to zero gravity. But this sloth lizard kind of figure...
Well, those are the ones that... show up in the cornfield and
cornhole
kindly request to be taken to something with authority.
Well, were they disappointed?
And also, if you look at the cover again, the structure behind the three tall aliens.
Oh, that's a structure.
Ah, it is.
Oh, I thought it was a silly cloud, but no, you're right. For the readers at home, it certainly looks like the American Congress building or the Vatican.
Yeah, St. Peter.
Or
it does have certain...
St. Basil Fool for Christ that's been painted white and made to resemble Congress.
It was white original, it's like before they went with...
Before they crushed the moon rocks and snorted them, yes. Well, that was the ultimate goal of the space race once it was realized that the moon is awesome, and before it was banned.
Rightfully so. It's like, the purple...
Justly so, some would say.
The purple eyes.
The purple eyes, but the great painting. Andy Warhol, Margaret Thatcher, Gorbachev, except he painted on his own face, which is still a masterpiece.
It is. It's very iconic. I mean, you can see this in if you look at old pictures of him in the older Soviet era. It's like
pale face,
and
smooth skin,
nice smooth bald head.
Exactly.
And only later when he rises to power and he gets his hand on Korolev's private stash.
Oh yes,
they knew each other well.
You sure know a lot about this stuff.
I like space stuff.
So did David Osborne.
He did.
Apparently.
He did. And aliens
Although
from space.
I was surprised that, given that the first manned missions were literally around the corner, that he had so little concept of the actual science of space travel. This cover, while it takes many artistic liberties, there is no mention of a helmet. There is no mention of so much as a rocket. He uses a plane to get up there.
Space planes,
Space planes, yes, but the implication is not that space travel has been held back by limitations of technology. According to David Osborne, it's been held back by a lack of commitment, by a lack of willingness to stock enough snacks to actually make the journey up, because it's so boring.
Well, that might have been what held back the lunar base.
Yes, because you get up there and you've got what were the options that you had? Squash, endless squash courts.
Sport. Sorry, I thought you were talking about squash.
Oh, I was talking about the entertainment, but yes, which famously grows very well in the lunar regolith.
Lattes. You can't get one. Despite plenty of squash on one side, but no pumpkin spice lattes.
An absolute nightmare. nightmare, and every day you can just look out of your lunar dome up at Earth, where you know that
it's almost like Earth is a big pumpkin, and you can't.
Okay, have you been crushing moon rocks again?
I cannot confirm nor deny that.
Okay, no, good, got you. Never does this gentleman encounter moon rocks, nor is he ever given a name, which I suppose is okay when the book is about aliens from space and there is one human. Why would he need a name?
It's also written in first person.
That's right.
He's never addressed.
Nor does he ever introduce himself.
It's a typical everyman type thing that the reader is clearly meant to identify with being the main character.
With being the suit-clad, brill cream.
For the white male populace of the 60s who bought these kind of books.
Explaining
this was absolutely
to a disinterested.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, the whole hands forward would be like pushing the door shut, but he's not got his foot forward. He's not trying to keep the door open.
Well,
so
there isn't a door in space. Space is based entirely on mime. You see the two figures in the background here.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're miming a karaoke bar, which does not exist, nor are they able to sing in the absence of air. Oh, hello, Miss Shouty Pants. Yes, we're doing a podcast here.
This is my little librarian. She loves sleeping among the books.
She goes hunting for bookworms.
The loud cracks from the 45 caliber bookworms don't scare her because she's deaf. So
because the spice must flow.
It doesn't bother her.
Oh, not the spice. What should it be? The ink must flow. I will let it pass over me and through me.
And only ink stains will remain.
Oh, that would have been better. I should have started with that one. Oh, the ink of Safu gives the thought speeds. It gives the lips stain. The stain becomes a warning. It is by.
It gives the finger stain.
It gives a finger stain. Oh, you're so much better at this. If only Frank Herbert hadn't
snorted all that moon dust.
Hadn't snorted all that crushed up moon dust. Seriously, I mean, we're probably going to edit this out. You don't have any, do you?
Moon dust?
I think I did very well, and I deserve maybe just a little bump of lunar regolith.
I'll go crush it with another nodule.
Yeah, why not? And in the meantime, we're going to take a little break to refresh our noses, and we'll be right back.
Powder our noses, yes.
So the story opens with a bit of a twist, because of course we expect the aliens to come from space, and not for our hero to go and visit space and to be himself the alien that is described.
I assume that the hands-up alien on the front page is Zorglab.
Yes, it's both a greeting, because it is explained, the Zorglabian...
His name is Zorglab, they're not called Zorglabians. That's what our main character thinks.
Of course, you're completely right.
It's the whole, what's that mountain
We're
called?
not doing improv.
It's your finger.
You don't follow along with somebody else's desperate imaginations. No, we're not doing that. This is a serious review podcast where we're reviewing an actual book, and I was just making a little joke, because it is his particular, if we're going to be like that, it is his particular sign language, because it is explained that these aliens, whose name is never mentioned, all have their own particular idiom, and that makes their communication very difficult, because they have to teach one another using sign language, as Zorglab here is trying to do to the protagonist, who is never named on account of it being a first person. That was also a really weird choice, to have the stranger in a strange land, to have the foreign invader essentially be the viewpoint character.
Right, but it does give you the opportunity to have to experience it from the reactions of others,
because he thinks that he's doing a great job. Exactly. He thinks that he's really getting
being kind and gregarious. It comes out very aggressive,
and also erotic. There is an undercurrent of sexual tension. Well, less with Zorglab, but with his second clutchmate, Ixki,
seen in the background,
arguing with an ex-lover of theirs.
He argued. I thought it was a mating dance.
Ixclay is what did I say? Ixclay is described as being very hard to read, even for those who grew up with him, her. The gender changes over the course of the story. Like, it varies by day. It varies by circumstance.
Time of day, or since they're cold-blooded, it could be a temperature-related thing.
Oh, it could be a biological thing.
Depending on.
There really was a lot in this book that I didn't get out of the first reading.
No. Well, there's a lot. I mean, I must admit, I did do a little bit of research on this. The Mohawk aliens. I've been watching the thing from afar, as is very.
Now, that was a very familiar trope at the time. There's so many episodes of the original Star Trek, even Battlestar Galactica, where there are aloof, godlike aliens, usually presented in Greco-Roman style, contributing very little, and yet somehow they're vastly powerful.
Malevolently judging.
With jaundiced eyes.
Well, yes.
Oh, I should write that down. Their eyes, of course, here are not jaundiced, but they do have an awful lot of fingers. Now, that's something that doesn't really come back in the book, so that has to be...
I think it's
artistic license.
Yes.
Honestly, do you think the entire Greco-Roman aliens are artistic? Because they barely figure in the book.
And they're present. They have, like, you know, they're always in the background.
Of scenes that are populated with so many more interesting aliens, inhabitants of space, because again, we are supposed to be the aliens, not just this unnamed human man, but we as the reader who is joining along with him as well. There are the giraffe women, and there are the tentacle clouds, and there are the digital manifestations of a now extinct but still electronically remembered species, and there are the co-hosts staring blankly at their partners who are desperately asking for some support in this endless list. They were my favorite, by the way. I loved the mute, gaping aliens, the fish out of water, highly encouraging and yet contributing
Having
nothing.
no idea what they're talking
nothing at
about.
all.
No,
okay, I'm going to take
aliens.
a drink of water. A very long drink of water. Can you tell us more about the? Can you tell me more about the second portion of the book? Because that was my favorite. Here I go. Time for a drink of water.
Okay, so the second half of the book is where it really takes off with the story. The mood becomes aggressive. It's the whole Italian talking with the hands thing is really not going down very well, and it causes a lot of, how shall we say, misunderstanding.
Certainly, because it's so hard to describe hand gestures in a textual medium, and I don't think David Osborne tries very hard.
No, he does a lot of person X instead of says, which is in writing is almost a non-word. You read over it, you gloss over it. Instead of that, he consistently uses gestures. And he slips up. The editor slipped up a few times. You can tell that like a few times.
At one point, someone festers, and at one point, someone bicycles. Like this is the editor really ought to be.
It was the 60s.
Have their lunar regolith restricted. It was the 60s.
It was a different age.
And, like, people weren't reading books. Like, it didn't really matter. They were buying them in vast quantities, but mostly on account of the cover. Hence the fact that Wutherington Lancelot is now is one of the richest artists in the world.
Yes, despite having lost 2 fingers, he's still...
Well, he still has 12. Oh, is this perhaps a self-portrait?
This is a good point. It might be.
Like Vincent van Gogh.
Putting himself in the background of a painting.
With some of his extra...
He did have elbows, though.
Oh, okay. No, that does undermine my theory.
Maybe it's wishful thinking for him.
Oh.
It's like...
Oh, do you think he had an elbow phobia?
A little bit of an idealized self-portrait.
So I'm looking at the image now, and I see that that Zorglab has very pronounced bony elbows. Yes. I think you described it as T-boning, where your bones move out of your skin as you're exposed to space. There's more of that.
Well, you can see it in the wrist, especially.
Can you?
Yeah, you can see the whole protrusions in the wrist.
Oh, I thought those were like flipper spurs, because he has kind of a duckish kind of.
Right, but they would grow out as well.
Now, what if we're completely misunderstanding this image? Now that I'm looking at it this close again, so I've been thinking that there was a stream of stars.
Nah, lunar regolith, man.
Do you think that they're smoking lunar soil?
It's been tried. It's very difficult.
By who?
The flash temperature.
Name someone.
The flash temperature is...
No, I challenge you. Name someone that we and the readers would know that obviously has been smoking lunar regolith.
Don't make me go and get my student rig.
Okay, now I kind of want you to go and get your student rig.
It doesn't work. Crushing and snorting is the way to go.
I believe you.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is you can flash heat it, and it'll evaporate, but it's going to either scorch your nostril hairs, or you cool it down again, and it just coalesces on the side of the tube, and then it's not going to...
But in either case, it's not going to deliver the same kind of contact buzz that you like, because it just tickles the brain in a way that regular old...
You can pound a little bit of the Pyrenees, but it's not really going to do the same thing.
Sorry, for a second I thought you meant Pekingese.
No, you can do that as well, but that's more...
No, you can't. No, you really can't, because the Pekingese will put up a fight, and because of various other reasons that are much more important. And again,
that kind of pounding.
There
right?
we go.
Sorry.
Wait, you didn't get that this whole time?
No, I did not.
Oh, you sweet innocent flower. Oh no, I've broken something beautiful. I've stained something so pure and innocent. Almost like Ixki. That's what I called him. That's what he was called in the book. Ixki.
Zorglab, yes.
Yes. Yes.
You're trying.
So my favorite scene was the concert during the meteor shower. That was spectacular. The fact that our protagonist spent most of it paralyzed and being carried around, sort of like he was crowd surfing, which hadn't been invented yet by Seattle in the 1950s. It was sensational. Now, unfortunately, he was facing down, but he did get to see all the cool aliens and their various genitals, and he didn't get to see that, and the feet,
which is where some people keep their genitals. It's also the
writer sure does love feet,
and the whole thing with the concert is like the meteor shower. It was set up weeks in advance.
Yeah,
and that's what caused the urgency in the scene, because they had to like make sure that everything happened right on time. Because once those meteors were set on a course,
yes, and
they were going.
That was planned.
Like
a billion years ago, 1.265 billion years ago.
And it had to happen then, and it's like the performance of a lifetime, and you can only hit your mark. There's no do-overs.
The band were also professionals, and I think a lot of that was kayfabe. A lot of that was, is Santa going to make it on time? Yeah, of course he's going to make it on time, but like he's gonna make you sweat. He's gonna make you sweat a little bit, so that when it does happen.
Oh, I always try to avoid thinking in like, oh, this character has plot armor, therefore I don't have to worry about it.
I mean, they were basically Gem and the holograms for the cartoon. Was even a glimmer in anyone's imagination.
Well, the whole crime-fighting musicians. It's
crime-fighting musicians with the flowing hair and the holographic technology. Also, a technological innovation from a science fiction writer.
And the asteroids. Personally, I think it was part of the war threat, which was in the background. That it just basically been set up as a long-term assault. Kind of like a doomsday. If everything else fails, at least we'll wipe them out with a meteor shower, which was like subtly averted, of course, and turned into the beautiful display that it
right. Because in the meantime, you had billions of years, 1.265 billion years of biological evolution, where, among other things, Zorglab's people lost the use of their. I mean, we've been describing them as hands. They're 4 feet essentially, but they do have 4 feet because. Boy howdy, does David Osborne love feet. So these aliens with all those feet, I mean, with that perspective, probably the Greco-Roman aliens, they must be extra villainous to his eyes, because their feet are...
And they have the 5 fingers.
And they have the 5 fingers and
their feet are a bit like undershapen, but I guess it alludes to the mechanisms of power. They are always being underhanded, underfooted. Not underfoot, but underhanded.
Well, do you think then the protagonist was maybe an avatar for David Osborne, talking with his hands so much, perhaps out of disgust with these appendages, wishing that he could have some extra feet?
Possible, although it would make it very hard to the sign language type thing.
Zorglab can do it. Ixtli can do it. Jeff can... Well, Jeff's not quite as good about it. He's much more combative and much more likely to assume that other people want to fight him.
It never happens. So it's like there's always a...
Yes, there's the brawl during the concert. That is definitely Jeff. That has Jeff written all over it.
Okay, yes, I agree.
He's not mentioned by name. You've got Ixtli frowning and looking away in shame and embarrassment, and Zorglab trying to distract everyone by rousing everyone to repeat the chorus again.
It's entirely taboo to be doing that kind of things with your hands and feet.
I mean, it's touching anything with your feet?
It only happens in intimate situations normally. And
faces are made for licking.
I guess you can say that fighting is about as intimate as you can get.
That actually reminds me, Zorglab's catchphrase throughout, faces are made for licking. To see, if you zoom in on the image, to see his little tongue sort of flicking out.
It does. He's clearly holding back the urge to slobber.
Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it's our hero, who's our protagonist, who's politely hand waving. No, that's fine. Whereas what we see at first here as Zorglab's pushing away gesture is actually more of a. I mean, they are feet. More of a come slither. But you like that one. But wow, what a realization. There's a lot more depth and personal exploration.
Oh, yes, I appreciate that. I didn't think that there were any aspects of this book which I hadn't considered yet, and yet here you are.
Well,
and here you. No, I agree. Like this is an entirely new angle. Maybe he was trying to sneak a sex scene in there.
Wait, what do you think was the sex scene?
The hands and the feet. Come on.
Oh, okay. Well, there again, we differ in our perspective on that. Like that. I mean, it certainly was intimate, but I read that more as them finally understanding one another, and the tension between Ixtli and Jeff was finally resolved, so that he could join Zorglab and our protagonist.
I think it was much more sexual than you realize when you read when the first time the scene.
I suppose he did have his cock out throughout, because David Osborne had this scale of a tumescence that he established in one of the appendices and then referenced throughout in footnotes.
To the appendix?
What?
Did he get up all the way to the appendix?
I guess I took a wrong turn somewhere.
Oh. There's the resolve scene after the big finale,
during which so much mention is made of our protagonist's swollen belly. I thought he would just gorged himself on various treats, but if this was a sex scene, could he have been pregnant?
I suppose. I mean, generally human hands and feet do not go there, so it would have...
Well, up to the appendix, you mean?
Well, no, definitely not there.
You say definitely. I've seen some videos.
No, not true, but like...
No, not true. Hold on, I was making that up. Don't agree with something that is so horrifying that I regret it. I said it as soon as it came out of my mouth.
Anyway, I think it's left to the reader's desires, where the reader's filthy little mind goes.
In that case, where did yours go?
I mean, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, you know.
And in the works of David Osborne?
Sometimes a handshake is just a handshake.
Unless one of the hands is a foot, in which case it is sex.
No,
you've convinced me. Thank you for joining us on Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read. By yours truly, I'm Khaki.
And I'm Kay, and we only judge a book by its cover.
That's it. Well done. Good podcast.